Thanks, Steven, for everything that you've been doing for Focus. This is kind of like our second series. For people who didn't hear the other series, I mean, go back and look at that one. That's kind of like really great kind of concepts on 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. One thing I've always thought Steven was great at, he has this great gift of teaching. So internally, we always had this way where we kind of teach each other. We would read something and we teach each other concepts, and it's always been. I think it helped us have this kind of culture of learning. I know, Steven, you read this new book, this Skin in the Game, and actually, I feel like I've learned a lot from just listening to you and reading a white paper. But can you give everyone like a little overview?
Yeah. So I guess before we get started, for those of you that are, tuning in, watching this recorded on YouTube, feel free to give us a like, leave a comment below. We want to learn from you as much as you want to learn from us, right? We want to start a discussion on some of this stuff, especially if you're, if this plays a role in your life. So feel free to do so. And all the interactions we get with videos like this help push it out to more people. So if you did learn something or found something insightful in a video like this, leave a comment, give us a like, because that could push the video out to somebody else and share this content with somebody who might, need to hear some things in one of these videos. So, but to move forward with what you were saying, Kurling, for the last couple of months, one of the big topics we've been talking about, especially with Fokcus and with a lot of entrepreneurs that we interact with on a daily basis, has been risk, right? Risk plays a big role in our lives, and it comes at us in different ways, right? Especially if you're an entrepreneur.
It does.
So maybe with some of these videos, we can dive into, the different roles risk plays in our lives and how we deal with that and what that means.
Yeah, I know there's all these really great concepts in the book on how people can start that path. And I know one was this kind of this entrepreneurship, right? Can you kind of delve into that? And I know there's some personas in that.
Yeah. And, some of these concepts are a combination of, that book Skin in the Game, and maybe some, other talks by, let's say, well-known entrepreneurs like Jeff Bezos or, Gary Tan, co-founder of Palantir, or, things that we've talked about in the last few months. But yeah, there's a lot of ways you can add risk to your career. One of the things that we've talked about is this idea of entrepreneurship, right? The role that entrepreneurial tendencies may play a role in your career. And one of the best analogies that we've heard for entrepreneurship, I guess, going down that road, would be there's three main phases to a business. Phase one, you have this commando phase, right? So think of commandos, they're similar to, let's say, your startup founders or early employees in a business. They parachute in, they break new ground, they establish a beachhead, right? They're usually the ones that are diving headfirst into the unknown, brand new problems, right? They could be working, at the forefront of innovation, right? Setting the stage for later phases of the business. Now, phase two, you have the army. Now, the army are the employees that follow the commandos, right? They're the ones who are going to be creating structure. They're going to be securing the established ground, right? While they may face big problems and challenges, ultimately, whatever they face, they're going to be building upon the foundation that those commandos have laid thus far, right? It's like, hiring new employees in a business. Let's say after your startup founder, they're going to build on what the founder, co-founders, what those early employees have done. And then the third phase is you have the police, right? So the police are the ones that are going to be holding down what has been established and built up. Now they're going to continue to push forward as anyone does, in the business, but some of their main goals are, maintenance, structure, and really, providing that longevity for the business over the long term, right?
I know offhand too, you have some really good analogies on some of that. You had some good analogs we talked about. I had a few too, but can you talk about one of those examples as it deals with more of this kind of commando mode, which we all are kind of have this empathy for?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we deal with entrepreneurs on a daily basis, and as you can guess, entrepreneurs are much more, the commando role than army or the police, right? We kind of like this analogy because it's an easy way to explain different phases of the business. I guess an example that you could use for somebody who's, let's say, they started a career, or they're in some sort of a career path at an established company, right? So think of, let's say, a software engineer at Amazon. And so You might be hired as a software engineer at Amazon. You might work on something like, let's say, AWS, right? So you're probably in more of an army or police role. It's an established product. You're moving it forward. You're pushing it forward and doing things in that realm. But it's not like you're breaking totally new ground. I mean, AWS is kind of an established product. But a way that, let's say, you might want to jump into more of a commando role. You say, okay, I want to take on some risk. I want to do something ambitious in my career. And so, Amazon's always trying new things, right? They're diving into new software problems and just problems in general. One of the ones we've heard about maybe over the past year or two is this idea of like a drone delivery service, right? Them playing around with that idea, right? Now, there's a lot of software involved with that. So if you're an engineer at Amazon, you might be able to talk to the right people internally and maybe be on one of the first, teams of people working on that, right? So now you've moved from, a police role, to a commando role, right? Which is kind of this synonymous with, all the, maybe new problems people face, in commando roles, let's say at an established company or at a startup or what have you. So there's ways you can move around in your career as well. What do you think, Kurling? You probably have some great examples of this.
No, I do. I can go back to when I was like little Curling. I was working at this kind of like consulting firm, and one interesting thing about the Commando, it takes sacrifice. Like we have some founders who are Navy SEALs, and we learned about all the sacrifices that Navy SEAls do to be that kind of commando. But it actually takes sacrifice. So to do that, it's not only being willing to, I can say I can do that and be confident, but you have to actually do a little sacrifice. So when I was at the consulting firm, I actually had to do a little extra time. I had to work extra hours. I had to do my regular things I had to do for the firm, but I also had to work on this project called Malibu. And late into the night, working on market research, which I hadn't done before, working on logos, doing kind of this kind of customer discovery. And but it was great because I learned all this problem solving that has helped me out in my career. But it did take some sacrifices. I'm used to playing sports or watching sports, like no sports. People actually felt like my friends were actually trying to figure out like Curling went to this rabbit hole for a while. Once I got out the rabbit hole, I told them what it was. It's going to be net zero, and we're going to move on to the next phase of it. But I was in that rabbit hole for a while. So it does take some sacrifice to be in that commando role. Not just saying you want to do it, but I was working a lot of hours at that time. I'm gonna put that number up there, but it was really, I guess, like if you say, this rites of passage for me, because everything I knew offhand, if I wanted to be able to be in this commando role, I knew it was going to take some sacrifice, take some commitment. So that's just one thing just to add on that. And I know Steven's been he's been a commando role in a lot of ways, and even doing this extra time of doing our kind of tech school, that's been extra on top of what he always does. So I think that's the thing I would probably add to it.
Yeah, and I know that one of the things that you mentioned actually earlier today, Curling, was being exposed to different roles in your career allows you to learn, and you walk away with so many benefits, right? You mentioned for you that you had some roles early on that might be Army or police, and then being exposed to that commando role, right? You walked away with quite a bit, right?
Definitely. So always be able to understand that you're going to kind of sow these seeds in your career, right? It might take some time, but later on you'll reap some of that as you move forward. And I think we're going to talk about those in the other episodes about how you can do other as you move forward to doing different things in your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I guess a good thing might be to end with is that different roles might not be for everyone, but I think the best thing is just understanding the different roles that risk may play in your career, whatever that may be. We try to use an easy kind of analogy, right? Commando, Army, police. But you might be very comfortable being in an Army role, or being in that commando role, or being in the police role, right? So just understanding what it means to you, and different ways that risk may play a role in your career, or different ways you may be able to move around and use risk to your advantage, I think is a great thing, especially if you have entrepreneurial tendencies like Curling and I, right?
Definitely. But thanks, Steven. This is great. I'm looking forward for the next phases of this series, and I've already learned a lot.
Yeah. In the next video, we'll talk a little bit more about different ways risk can play a role in your career beyond, entrepreneurship, right? But I guess for those of you who are watching, just to echo from the beginning of the video, if you have a chance, feel free to give us a like, leave a comment below. We want to learn from you as much as you might want to learn from us. So, it's great to be able to continue this discussion, whether it be through, through comments or whatever that may be. And all the interactions we get with videos like this, whether it be a like, whether it be, you leaving your thoughts, asking a question, whatever it may be, pushes this video out to more people. So if you found something insightful, if you found something really interesting, intriguing, feel free to, interact with it, interact with the video, because it may push it out to an entrepreneur, may push it out to somebody who, may benefit a lot from something that was shared today. But as always, we'll see you in the next video.